There are so many dangerous situations that a pilot could get themselves into. But some of the most dangerous situations that I've seen actually happen when the pilot doesn't realize that they're taking a risk. And the weird thing is, sometimes a good thing can cause a risk. With modern technology, we've got more tools than we've ever had before. And we also have more resources available to us as pilots. But the thing we need to remember is that risks that we're not aware of can create some of the most dangerous situations. That's why it's always important to identify the risks first before you even go fly. And that's why we talk about aviate, navigate, and communicate as instructors and as aviators, because that gives us something to think about and to think about our priorities while we're flying. A few years ago, I was asked to help ferry a Cessna 172 from New Jersey all the way over to Kansas. And of course, I happily volunteered because one, I love flying airplanes, and I also wanted more experience. Who doesn't? But what I didn't realize at the time is that this airplane was VFR only, which isn't really a big deal because the weather along our route of flight was supposed to be pretty good almost the whole entire way. And being an IFR pilot with a commercial rating and military experience, I looked at the weather through those lenses and I was thinking we were good because in my mind, I was thinking I had those strengths to lean on because I had a lot of experience with those things, but I didn't have those tools in the plane. And so I was taking on risks that I didn't realize that I was taking on. And I'm actually a very experienced VFR pilot too, but I wasn't thinking about that risk of not having those tools. So I took on risk right away that I didn't realize I was taking on. So we flew that first leg from New Jersey to the middle of West Virginia, stopped, got gas, and it was relatively uneventful. We did a little bit of mission planning, took a look at the weather, and what I noticed is that there was a small warm front moving in, and there were some clouds holding along our next route of flight. We were still totally legal to fly under them, but it was a broken layer, and so we had to make a decision. Are we going to go under these clouds or are we going to go above them? And we were totally legal to do either one, but I elected to go underneath them because we didn't have all the proper instruments for IFR flight. And even though our weather products were showing us that we were good and the weather was breaking up on the backside of our route, I decided to go under the clouds because I've done that before where I went over the top of clouds and the weather was supposed to get better on the other side and it wasn't. In that case, I had to descend on an IFR clearance and get down that way. But once again, this plane is VFR, so we don't have that option in this case. So I decided to go under the clouds, and there were some airports right in front of us. If the weather got down too low, then I could just dip down and land at one of those airports and reevaluate the situation. Now, at the time, I was actually on flight following with Indianapolis Center, and I chose to get flight following because I wanted a little bit of help looking for traffic because I didn't have like an ADS-B puck or anything like that. All I had was ForeFlight and my phone and this VFR airplane. And the visibility was pretty good, so I wasn't too concerned about thunderstorms in the area, but I wanted ATC as a backup in case they saw something that I didn't. And it was right here in the flight where I started taking on risks that I didn't realize I was taking on. Because I dipped down, and right in this area, there's a lot of terrain, and terrain's fine, it's no big deal. I could see just fine. We were well beneath the weather. So when we dipped down to get beneath the weather, we started getting into that terrain, and I lost line of sight with ATC, which means I started having comm issues. And this didn't really seem like a problem at the time because the weather looked pretty decent. The clouds were just a little bit lower, but we were still legal, and everything looked fine. In fact, I could still hear Indianapolis Center, they just couldn't hear us. And because of that, there was another aircraft in the area who was trying to relay information back and forth between us and Indianapolis Center. And by the way, I really appreciate those guys doing that. But it's at this point in our story where I started losing sight of aviate, navigate, communicate. I was more focused on trying to communicate with ATC and tell them our position and make sure that they knew what we were doing. And this is where things started to get a little bit scary because I had no idea that I was beginning to take on risk by prioritizing communication over aviating and navigating. And when I looked straight ahead, I saw that the precipitation started to pick up. Now, I could have picked my way through the precipitation. We were still further than 3 miles visibility, but that's a risk I didn't want to take with a VFR only airplane. And that's what's kind of interesting here. I knew about that risk, but I wasn't really thinking about the communication risk. And so I'm prioritizing relaying this information to ATC, talking to these guys, and trying to let them know what we're doing. But all the meanwhile, I'm missing out on something that I'm not realizing. So it's at this point that I decide that we just need to land and figure things out from there. So I decided to just pick an airfield straight ahead that looks decent and head that direction so we can just get on the ground. So at this point, I relay that information to ATC through those other pilots. And right as I do that, a thunderstorm cell pops up right over the top of that field and starts just drenching that airfield. And I'm not scared of rain, but obviously there's a small cell there, and ATC actually sees it as well. And this is where the radios start going crazy. Indianapolis Center is trying to relay to us that there's a cell right over this field, and the other pilots think that we can't hear them, so they're trying to relay that information to us. And we're trying to tell them at the same time that we're not going to that airfield. We're just going to make a turn to the north. And Center's trying to give me a vector to the north, which is good. And I'm trying to turn to the north to match what they're saying. But because I was so focused on communication, I had failed to realize that my heading indicator literally just broke right before that point. And because of that, I made a turn all the way to the east, and I thought, golly, this turn is lasting forever. And I look up at my mag compass, and I'm headed straight east, not straight north. All the while this is happening, ATC can see us on radar, and so this confuses them, and you can tell they're worried. They're asking what we're doing, they're asking where we're going, and at this point, the other plane is gone. He can no longer relay the information to them. And it's at this point that I realize that I haven't been prioritizing aviation and navigation over communication. It took me that whole entire time, probably 4 or 5 minutes, to realize that I was prioritizing communication. So at this point, I decided to continue east to the nearest airport that's straight ahead of us. Now, I didn't turn off the radios, but I stopped trying so hard to get a hold of them. I prioritized flying the airplane, and I prioritized heading straight towards that airport. And every now and then I tried to call them, but I did not try to respond unless I knew for sure that they could hear us. In fact, the rest of the flight, I was not able to talk to them, even though I did try a few more times. And once I got on the ground, I called them on the phone. I let them know I was okay. And I told them a little bit about the situation. And they were appreciative that I did that. And by the way, I want to thank those center controllers who helped me out. It's probably been 3 years ago now, but I really appreciate what you guys did. But I wanted to make this video because I think it's important to talk about aviate, navigate, communicate. And even though something's good, it may still be a risk. Flight following is an amazing tool that can give you excellent situational awareness. But you also have to realize that it can be a risk sometimes. And I never considered this to be the case before this happened. But you see a lot of pilots who don't take flight following, especially in terrain and situations like this, for this specific reason. They don't want to have to mess with trying to communicate when they know it's just not going to be possible. And please don't misunderstand me. I'm not telling you to not use flight following. What I'm saying is that flight following can be a risk in some situations. And I want you to prioritize aviation, navigation, and then communication. We all get taught this, but it's really easy to forget in situations like this. Hey, thanks for joining me today on Free Pilot Training. This video was actually made for Red Yeti members. And I want to thank all my members for supporting this community and this channel. It really means a lot, and it really does help. And I hope you guys don't mind. I'm going to go ahead and share this video with the rest of the Free Pilot Training members after it runs for a couple weeks. And that's because I want people to see what we're doing over on this Red Yeti side. And I want to be able to create more content like this for folks that are interested, because I think it's important to talk about. Yeah, I show my flaws, but I'm a human being, and so are you. I think we need to sit down and talk about this a little bit. So $2.99 for a Red Yeti membership per month. I think that's a pretty good deal for me to be able to sit down and talk with you guys a little bit. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider being a Red Yeti member. If you don't want to be, that's fine. We still have a ton of other videos on Free Pilot Training. And thank you guys for watching.